room was silent, save for the low hum of the air purifier. Han Ji-hoon sat alone at the long table in his glass-walled office, the city of Seoul glittering far below him. His suit was perfect, his expression unreadable, but the email glowing from the monitor had cracked something beneath his skin. The estate of Han Yoon-ji. Custody petition opened. Minor child, Han Hana. He read the line again and again. The air felt thick. He loosened his tie, but it didn't help. Rain fell like Seoul itself was mourning, soft and cold and endless. Ji-hoon stood beside the small girl in black tights and patent leather shoes. Hana didn't cry, not once. She just held his hand like it was the last warm thing left in her world. The child's social worker, Ms. Choi, gave him a clipboard and a doubtful glance. "You're listed as her guardian, Mr. Han," she said gently, "but emotional stability matters just as much as financial." Ji-hoon's jaw clenched. "She's my niece. And you're unmarried. You live alone. No child-rearing experience. Grief is unpredictable at this age. The court may appoint a foster home." Hana flinched at the word. That night, she crawled into his bed without a word and curled into a ball, her tiny hand fisting the sleeve of his shirt. Ji-hoon didn't sleep, not even a minute. 2 days later, he found the old business card, Brittany Jacobs, interior design with heart. Her writing was loopy and bold. There was a coffee stain on the back, probably from Hana's juice box. Ji-hoon stared at it for a long time. She was the only person who had ever made his sister laugh in the last year of her life. The only one Hana still asked about. He remembered their first meeting. Brittany had walked into his sister's tiny apartment, looked around and said with a grin, "We're gonna warm this place up, starting with that ice block of a brother I heard about." She was warm, loud, unapologetic. Exactly the kind of woman he didn't know how to talk to, but maybe exactly the kind of woman Hana needed. Brittany Jacobs had had enough. Of exes who lied, of sole landlords who didn't believe in grace periods, and of the cardboard box she now called a purse. She stood in the lobby of the cafe where Ji-hoon had asked to meet, wearing the only wrinkle-free blazer she had left and a glare that could melt asphalt. When he entered, tall, stiff, all black everything, she folded her arms. "So let me guess, your fancy condo needs redecorating and you want a feminine touch for your showroom project?" Ji-hoon slid into the booth across from her, ignoring the jab. "No, I need you to live with me." A beat of silence. Then, "Excuse me?" He looked her dead in the eye. "And pretend to be my partner. For the court." Brittany blinked, then laughed once, sharp and short. "I thought rich men at least led with coffee and flattery." "I don't have time." Clearly, he opened his tablet and slid it across to her. On the screen, legal documents, custody papers, Hana's name. "My sister left me everything, but the court wants proof that I can provide emotional stability, a family. You're someone Hana already knows, trusts. The court sees that." Brittany stared at the screen, then up at him. "So you want a lie that looks like love?" Ji-hoon's voice was quieter this time, almost ashamed. "I want a home that passes inspection." Brittany's sarcasm faltered. He wasn't arrogant. He was desperate. For Hana. For something he didn't know how to build. She thought of Hana's tiny hands on her cheeks the last time she visited. "Auntie Brittany, do you want to sleep over sometime?" She hadn't known it would be the last time she saw her mother alive. Brittany sat back, heart aching and conflicted. She had nowhere to go, no one waiting on her, and somehow this cold man had offered her both shelter and a role to play. She smirked faintly. "Fine." She stood and tossed her curls over her shoulder. "Let's play house, Appa." Ji-hoon nodded once. No smile. but something in his chest loosened. A couple of days later, the door to Ji-hoon's penthouse clicked open. Brittany stepped in, dragging her rolling suitcase behind her. The place was immaculate, gleaming, silent. White walls, black furniture, not a single photo frame, not a single speck of life. It was the opposite of home. It was a mausoleum with a city view. She dropped her bag, walked straight to the living room window, and yanked the curtains open. Sunlight spilled in, soft, warm, alive. She turned back, her eyes meeting his. Step 1. Let's start by letting some light in. Ji-hoon didn't move, but for the first time in years, the shadows on his face softened, and from down the hallway came a small voice. Brittany? Hana peeked out from behind the wall. Brittany crouched down, arms open. Hey, baby girl. The child ran into her arms like she'd been holding her breath all week. Ji-hoon turned away, but not before Brittany saw it. His eyes, glass and silent, shining with something that looked a lot like grief, or hope, or maybe both. The next morning after Brittany moved in, the apartment was already different. The curtains were still open. There was the faint scent of cinnamon in the air. Somewhere in the kitchen, a jazz playlist hummed from her phone. Low, warm, playful. And Ji-hoon was standing motionless in the hallway, his jaw tight, watching a woman in bunny slippers flip pancakes in his designer kitchen. Brittany danced lightly to the beat, her curls tied in a loose puff, her soft pink robe cinched around her waist. "You're up early, Appa," she said without turning, flipping a pancake with perfect rhythm. "I made breakfast. It's not Michelin star, but the child will survive." Ji-hoon blinked. "You used my cast iron skillet." "Yeah, that's what it's for, right?" He glanced at the empty hooks where his precisely arranged utensils used to hang. There was now a mismatched mug on the counter, bright yellow, chipped at the lip. Chaos. Warm, smiling chaos. Later, over breakfast, Hana giggled for the first time in days. She was curled up beside Brittany on the couch, her cheeks sticky with syrup and joy. Ji-hoon sat across the room, on a separate armchair, watching silently as Hana nestled into Brittany's side like she'd always belonged there. "You know," Brittany said, brushing crumbs from Hana's hair, "in some cultures, breakfast is eaten together, at the table." "I prefer separate seating," Ji-hoon muttered. "Yeah, I noticed. But she's not a client. She's a kid." His gaze flicked to Hana, who was humming softly, her hand resting in Brittany's lap. Her shoulders weren't tense anymore. Her eyes had lost the haunted look, and for a flicker of a moment, Ji-hoon felt it. Something he hadn't felt since he was a boy trying to understand why his mother packed her jewelry into a suitcase and walked out the door. Warmth. It terrified him. That night, they sat at the kitchen table while Hana played with colored pencils on the floor. Ji-hoon pulled out a list. Of course he had a list, and slid it across the table to Brittany. "Ground rules. We keep things professional," he said firmly. "Separate rooms. No physical affection unless required. No public arguments. And no getting attached." Brittany raised an eyebrow. "You saying that for you or for me?" "For both of us." She leaned back, arms crossed, studying him. "Okay, let's set your little boundaries. But newsflash, kids don't follow contracts, and neither does grief." His hand tensed slightly. "She's already calling you Ajuma, Brittany. You're not her mother." Brittany's voice softened. "But I'm the one she runs to when she wakes up crying." The silence between them grew thick. Ji-hoon stood abruptly. "Just keep it realistic, that's all." The next day, Brittany found a drawing taped to the fridge. Crayons, bright colors, shaky handwriting, a stick figure girl with curly hair, a man in a suit, a little girl with pigtails. Above them, in pink scribbles, Umma, Appa, me. Brittany's breath caught in her throat. She looked over her shoulder. Ji-hoon stood behind her, staring at the paper. His face shut down in an instant. "She's getting too attached," he said quietly. Brittany turned toward him slowly. Or maybe she just feels safe for once. That single sentence landed like a stone between them. The apartment felt different that evening, quieter, like the air itself was holding its breath. Ji-hoon kept to his study. Brittany read bedtime stories to Hana, who fell asleep clutching her hand. When Brittany returned to the living room, she curled onto the couch in silence, wrapped in a throw blanket. The dishes were done. The music was off. Seoul blinked faintly outside the windows like a distant galaxy. Ji-hoon walked out hours later, intending to grab his laptop, but he froze. Brittany was asleep, curled into herself, face half lit by the moonlight filtering through the windows. Her breathing was soft, steady, her lips slightly parted, hair loose around her cheeks. Something in his chest moved. He didn't understand it, only that he hadn't felt it in years, and it scared him more than any court hearing ever could. He stood there too long enough to feel his heartbeat in his throat, long enough to wonder what it would be like, if this wasn't pretend. He slowly knelt to pick up a pillow that had fallen beside her, but his hand hovered. She stirred slightly in her sleep and murmured, "Ji-hoon." His throat tightened. "Go back to sleep," he whispered. He didn't touch her, didn't move, just sat down quietly on the floor beside the couch, back against the armrest, staring out the window. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. It started with a knock, a sharp, unexpected one, too formal to be friendly. Brittany peeked through the peephole just as Ji-hoon strode past her, already tucking in his shirt sleeves. He opened the door. A woman stood there, dressed in a beige trench coat and holding a slim black tablet. "Han Ji-hoon-si?" "Yes, I'm Park Min-kyung from the family court. I'm here for the initial domestic review." Brittany's heart skipped. The visit wasn't scheduled for another 2 weeks. Ji-hoon's voice remained calm, controlled. "We weren't expecting you until..." That was intentional. Unannounced visits ensure authenticity. Park Min-kyung's eyes swept over the apartment interior. Clean, cozy. A soft vanilla candle flickered near the hallway. Hana's toys were neatly tucked into a corner. And then she turned to Brittany. "And you are?" Brittany smiled with practiced ease. "Brittany Jacobs, Ji-hoon's partner." The word sat awkwardly on her tongue, but she made it sound effortless, warm. The officer nodded. "We'll need photos of your daily life, evidence of community, family interaction. I recommend hosting a home gathering, friends, colleagues, something that shows your bond is accepted and genuine." Brittany's smile didn't falter, but inside, panic. She was good at acting warm, but being watched while pretending to be someone's partner in front of his emotionally constipated colleagues and cold father, that was war. The following Saturday, the apartment transformed again. The jazz music stayed, but now it mingled with laughter, foreign voices, and the clink of glasses. There were co-workers, architects, neighbors from the same floor. Even Hana's schoolteacher came. Brittany had thought of everything. Ji-hoon watched from the edge of the room, silently sipping from a glass of sparkling water, his jaw tight, his gaze locked on one person, her. Brittany wore a soft blue wrap dress that caught the light when she moved. Her curls were let loose. She had that kind of presence, the kind that shifted a room's gravity. She laughed easily, listened intently. Her Korean wasn't perfect, but her warmth made every word feel fluent. "Is this the woman you've been hiding from us?" one architect asked Ji-hoon with a chuckle. Ji-hoon simply nodded, gaze never leaving her. She wasn't performing. She was just being. And yet, his chest felt like it was caving in. Then, he saw him. His father. Chairman Han stood at the far end of the living room, immaculate in a dark suit, arms crossed, gaze cool and piercing. He was speaking to no one, watching everything. When Brittany made her way over with a glass of wine, Ji-hoon instinctively stepped forward. "Appa, this is Brittany." She bowed politely. "It's a pleasure, Chairman Han." The older man nodded once, slowly. "She's lively. She's good with Hana." "That's convenient," he replied with a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. Then he added, "Lo, another performance, just like your mother used to give." Ji-hoon's face turned to stone. "This isn't a performance." His father raised a brow, unmoved. "Then why does it still feel like a show?" In the kitchen, later that evening, Brittany rinsed glasses in the sink while Ji-hoon toweled the counters beside her. It was quiet, too quiet. The warmth from earlier had faded, replaced with a charged silence. She finally broke it. "You always do that." He didn't look at her. "Do what?" "Defend me. Claim me like I'm yours in front of everyone." She turned toward him, her voice low. He froze. "You keep pulling me in," she whispered, "and I keep pretending it's just the script." His eyes slowly rose to meet hers, and for the first time, he didn't look away. The kitchen lights were soft, golden. Her eyes glistened, but not from tears, from the unbearable tension of wanting something real while living in a lie. He stepped forward, paused. Then he kissed her, software hesitant. Not like a man who was claiming a body, but like a man who didn't know if he had the right to ask for a heart. His lips brushed hers, once, then again, and just when Brittany exhaled, breathless, stunned, he pulled back, a sharp intake of breath, guilt flashing across his face. He took 2 steps back. I shouldn't have." And just like that, he turned, walked down the hall, and closed his bedroom door. Click. Brittany stood alone in the kitchen, her fingers pressed to her lips, heart pounding in her chest. "That," she whispered to no one, "that wasn't in the script." The air in the penthouse changed after the kiss. It wasn't obvious. No arguments, no confessions, no shattered glasses. Just silence, a fragile, loaded silence. Ji-hoon stayed late at work 2 nights in a row. When he did come home, he moved like a ghost, cordial, distant, never lingering in the same room with Brittany longer than necessary. And when he did look at her, it was like he was trying not to. Brittany noticed everything. The way he entered the kitchen only after she left it. The way his jaw tightened if she touched Hana's hair. The way he flinched, almost imperceptibly, whenever their hands brushed. It wasn't rejection. It was restraint. And it was driving her mad. By the 3rd day, she snapped. "Is that how you kiss everyone you're trying to impress the court with?" Ji-hoon looked up from his laptop, startled. She stood in the middle of the living room, barefoot in leggings and a loose tee. Her eyes were sharp, tired, hurting. He closed the laptop slowly. "Brittany." "Don't Brittany me like I'm your intern," she snapped. "I know what that kiss was, and I know what this silence is. But what I don't know, what I can't keep guessing, is where I stand in this lie." He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "Forget it," she said, turning away. "Forget I asked." The next morning, a letter arrived from the court. Another request, this time in bold, evidence of affection and emotional connection. Joint participation in family counseling. Couple photography for review. Brittany stared at the list with narrowed eyes. They really want proof, huh? Ji-hoon nodded stiffly. We'll take the photos this weekend. We should win an Oscar for this, she muttered. They went to a photographer the next day. It was a soft-lit studio filled with props, flower arches, cozy blankets, toy blocks for children. The photographer, a bubbly woman in her 50s, waved her hands with enthusiasm. Let's get one where you're cuddling on the couch. Yes, like that. Beautiful. Oh, and one of you brushing her hair back. Gently now. So romantic. Now a kiss on the forehead. Mr. Han, come on, it's for the court. Ji-hoon complied mechanically. His lips brushed Brittany's temple like a whisper. It felt hollow. And that hurt her more than if he hadn't kissed her at all. The counseling session followed. A young therapist asked them questions about their parenting philosophies, communication styles, emotional triggers. Brittany answered openly. Ji-hoon spoke like a lawyer. When asked about how they handle conflict, Brittany gave a bitter laugh. He shuts down, I shut up. We make a perfect pair. The therapist blinked. And emotionally, do you two feel supported by each other? Silence. Ji-hoon glanced sideways. Brittany looked down. We're figuring that out, she said quietly. But inside, she already knew the answer. That evening, Brittany and Hana fell asleep together on the couch after watching a cartoon marathon. Popcorn bowls sat abandoned. The lights dimmed automatically at 10. Ji-hoon returned from a meeting close to midnight. He stepped into the living room and stopped. There they were. Brittany's arm draped protectively over Hana, her face soft and relaxed in sleep. Hana's tiny hand curled into the fabric of Brittany's shirt, like she was clinging to her favorite dream. Ji-hoon just stood there, watching. He didn't know how long he stayed. 5 minutes? An hour? Something inside him ached, longing, gratitude, and something terrifyingly close to love. Later that night, Brittany stirred awake and padded toward the kitchen for water. That's when she heard it. Ji-hoon, on the phone, his voice low, urgent. She was never supposed to mean anything, he said. Brittany froze. She was just part of the plan. The water bottle slipped from her hand, not loud enough to make a sound, but enough to shake her soul. She didn't hear the second part, didn't hear Ji-hoon's voice drop even lower, raw and stripped of defense. That's what I told myself, because I was afraid she'd matter too much. But Brittany was already walking away. Her chest felt tight. Her eyes burned. She packed quietly. No drama, no slammed doors, just folded clothes and a notebook filled with design sketches. She left the couple photos on the coffee table, and one of Hana's drawings taped to Ji-hoon's desk, the one that said Appa, me. And beneath it, in Brittany's handwriting, I stopped pretending. You didn't. She closed the door softly behind her, and for the first time since the lie began, she cried like it had been real. Because it was, at least, for her. The penthouse felt colder without her. It wasn't just Brittany's warmth that had vanished. It was the soul of the space. No more jazz in the kitchen. No scattered mugs or blankets. No scent of cinnamon or soft humming at night. Just Ji-hoon, alone, and Hana. Or so he thought. He realized she was missing when her bedroom door remained shut past noon. He knocked. No answer. Opened it. Empty. No backpack. No stuffed lion. No Hana. The panic didn't hit all at once. It crept in slowly, methodically, like cold fingers wrapping around his throat. He called the school. They hadn't seen her since yesterday. Security footage from the lobby showed her slipping out that morning with her hood up, holding something tightly in her arms. A drawing. Have you seen this child? He asked strangers in the park, waved her photo at subway attendants. His voice cracked in every phone call, His tie was loose, his eyes frantic. "Hana, please," he whispered to no one. "Where did you go?" Brittany's phone buzzed just as she was leaving her temporary guest house. Unknown number. "Hello? It's Ji-hoon," came the choked reply. "She's missing." Her heart dropped. No explanation needed. She ran. They found her an hour later, at the botanical garden, tucked behind a wall of hydrangeas and roses. She was sitting cross-legged on the ground, clutching a crumpled drawing to her chest. When Brittany dropped to her knees in front of her, Hana didn't speak, didn't smile, just looked up with wide, hurt eyes and said, "You left, like everyone else." Brittany felt her soul collapse. "Oh, baby, no." She gathered Hana into her arms, her voice trembling. "I didn't leave you. I was just scared. I thought I didn't matter enough to stay. Mommy said people who love you don't leave." "She was right," Brittany whispered through tears. "And I love you. I'm sorry I made you doubt it." Ji-hoon found them like that. Brittany on her knees in the soil, holding Hana close as if she'd never let go again. He froze. His throat tightened. Then something broke. All the steel and ice and quiet rage. It shattered like glass. He stumbled toward them, his voice strangled. "I'm sorry." Brittany looked up and saw him, truly saw him, not as the cold CEO, not as the man who kissed her and gave her silent, but as a broken son, a terrified guardian, a man unraveling. He dropped to his knees beside her, chest heaving. "I didn't push you away because you were fake," he said, voice trembling. "I pushed you away because you weren't. You were the first real thing I felt in years." His eyes met hers, unblinking, honest, and that terrified me. Brittany's heart twisted. "You said we were just playing house," she whispered, "but I built something real in my heart." "So did I," he said, barely breathing. "And when it got too real, I didn't know how to hold it without breaking it." They sat in silence for a moment, three hearts pressed together in the middle of a public garden, surrounded by flowers that kept blooming even when no one watched. Later, as dusk settled over Seoul, they walked home together. Hana held Brittany's hand on one side, Ji-hoon's on the other. She swung gently between them, safe again. That night, after tucking Hana in, Brittany stepped out onto the balcony. She expected silence, but Ji-hoon followed. He stood beside her, eyes on the city skyline. "This was supposed to be temporary," he said softly. "A contract, a cover." She nodded once. "I know." But somewhere along the way, it became everything. He turned toward her then, slowly, carefully, and then he dropped to his knees, not with a ring, not with a proposal, but with something deeper. "I'm not asking you to love me right now," he said. "I'm asking for a chance, to stop pretending, to try for real." Brittany looked down at him, at the man who had once treated love like a liability, now trembling in front of her, vulnerable, human, finally open. Her voice broke. "I don't want perfect, Ji-hoon. I know. I just want real." He reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't let go. Courtrooms always smelled like old wood and tension. The walls were beige, the lights too bright, and Ji-hoon's heart beat far too loud in his ears. He adjusted the cuffs of his suit jacket and glanced down at Hana, seated beside him in a tiny navy dress with white socks and shiny shoes. She held Brittany's hand, tight. Brittany looked calm on the outside, but Ji-hoon could see it. The way her thumb gently stroked the back of Hana's hand, the way her knee bounced beneath the bench. "You ready?" she whispered to Hana. Hana nodded. "Can I tell the judge I want to keep both of you?" Brittany smiled through tears. "You absolutely can." The judge entered moments later, stern, expressionless, gavel in hand. This is the final review of the Han custody petition regarding minor Hana, the judge announced, with the addition of Ms. Brittany Jacobs as a co-guardian listed under joint domestic representation. She scanned the papers in silence, then looked up, straight at Ji-hoon. "Mr. Han," she said, eyes sharp, "are you sure this isn't just a performance? A convenience to secure custody?" The room stilled. Even the court recorder paused her typing. Ji-hoon didn't flinch. Instead, he stood, then turned to Brittany. Her eyes widened as he reached into his coat pocket. A small box, no velvet, no diamonds, just a ring. Simple, honest, real. He opened it slowly, his voice steady, but heavy with everything unsaid until now. "I've been pretending my whole life," he said, "pretending to be unaffected, to be perfect, to be like my father, pretending I didn't need connection, or love, or warmth." He glanced toward Hana, then back to Brittany. "Except when I'm with her, with them." "This isn't a lie." His voice cracked, just barely. "Not anymore." He dropped to one knee. "I'm not asking for a perfect answer, just a real one. Will you build a life with me? Not because the court asked, but because we both stopped pretending?" Brittany's hand covered her mouth. The courtroom blurred, not with flashbulbs, but with emotion. Real, raw, undeniable. She lowered her hand and nodded, tears slipping past her lashes. "Yes, God, yes." The judge didn't smile, but her voice softened. "Custody is granted, full and permanent, to the Jacobs Han household." That night, back at the apartment, Hana climbed up on a chair with a roll of tape and a piece of paper she'd worked on all week. Brittany and Ji-hoon stood behind her, arms wrapped around each other as Hana carefully taped the picture to the front door. A stick figure girl with long hair, a man in a suit with glasses, a woman in a pink dress, all holding hands. Above them, in purple crayon, she'd written, "The Jacobs Han family. No pretending allowed." Morning light spilled across the breakfast table. Toast crumbs, juice glasses, Hana's giggle echoing down the hallway as she sang to herself. Brittany sat beside Ji-hoon, barefoot, coffee in hand, wrapped in his oversized shirt. No makeup, no pretense, just her. He reached for her fingers beneath the table and kissed them. "Still feels unreal," he murmured. Brittany turned to him, her eyes soft. "Let's not play house, Appa." She smiled. "Let's live it." He leaned in and pressed his forehead to hers. And in that quiet space where nothing needed to be said, they finally had everything. 1 year later, the apartment was louder now. Not in a chaotic way, in a lived-in way. The kind of noise that came from 3 toothbrushes in the cup, mismatched socks in the hallway, and a little girl narrating her serial adventure like she was a TV host. And then, the magical spoon dove into the strawberry milk river and, "Appa, are you listening?" Ji-hoon looked up from the kitchen counter, where he was slicing fruit with the concentration of a man who had only recently accepted that mangoes were not, in fact, a luxury fruit reserved for emergencies. "I'm listening, Sorijangi," he said with a grin, using the nickname Brittany had taught Hana, storyteller. "It was a magical spoon today," Hana repeated, chin lifted in mock seriousness. Across the room, Brittany laughed as she buttoned her blouse. Her curls were pulled into a low bun, soft tendrils escaping like they always did. She wore pearl earrings now, not because they were expensive, but because Hana had given them to her in a plastic box labeled "For Mommy," for when she feels fancy. She did feel fancy and seen and home. "I'm meeting with the design board today," she said, grabbing her bag. "Don't let her eat 3 breakfasts again." Ji-hoon feigned innocence. She's growing. Sideways. Love you too. Brittany smirked, walking over to kiss him, softly, with the kind of ease that comes only after being broken, rebuilt, and still choosing each other every morning. Hana made gagging noises behind her cereal bowl. One day, you're gonna thank us for showing you what real love looks like, Brittany teased, ruffling Hana's hair. Only if Appa lets me have magical cereal for dinner again. Don't push it. Later that afternoon, after school and snacks and a very serious game of drawing contests, Hana walked to the front door with a new picture. This time, it wasn't stick figures. It was 3 smiling faces, drawn with more detail, more confidence. Ji-hoon's glasses, Brittany's curls, Hana's dimple. Above it, in bold pink marker, the Jacobs Han family, still not pretending. She taped it over last year's fading drawing. Ji-hoon stood behind her, arms crossed, heart full. Looks like the artist has upgraded, he said. We're real, Hana replied proudly. So the picture should be too. Brittany walked in behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist. She's not wrong. She gets that from you. That night, the 3 of them curled up on the couch. Hana fell asleep between them, head on Brittany's lap, feet on Ji-hoon's thigh. The TV played quietly, and Ji-hoon reached over, threading his fingers through Brittany's, his voice low. I used to think love had to look like control. Brittany looked over at him. Now? He smiled. Now I know it looks like cereal and drawings, and you stealing my side of the bed. She laughed softly and leaned her head on his shoulder. Outside, the city blinked and buzzed. Inside, everything was still. No pretending, no fear. Just a life, real, whole, and finally theirs. The end.